Good morning, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you might be doing. We wish to welcome you to the Silverlight Show. The Silverlight shines to illuminate that which lies hidden in darkness. For those of you joining me in today, we welcome you in. It's official. The pandemic is over. Or at least, that's what the government has decided. Or has it? You see, the Canadian government just today announced that their Canadian recovery benefit will end at the end of October. And they have a new benefit coming in that will take care of people that have been put into lockdown. Well, that's fine and dandy, except you can guarantee, now there's an economic incentive involved, no one's going to be going into lockdown. They've cut people off without cutting them off. They've changed the goalposts. Quite a clever little thing. Now, this piece of news is interestingly juxtaposed with a lot of cities declaring there would not be a Santa Claus parade this year. Probably in the streets of Toronto, there will be some sort of a Santa Claus parade. But if you're in Brampton or Ajax or Vaughan, Woodbridge, what have you, no Santa Claus parade for you. So if this is the end of the pandemic and benefits are no longer necessary and things are going back to normal, why can't we have a parade? I mean, to have a parade is quite a complicated process. But one of the things you have to do is to hire enough off-duty police officers to provide security around the area. And it's their job to make sure you don't get too many people jammed up in one spot. So there's every reason that you could have a parade. It'll cost you a little more in terms of police presence, but at the same token, that won't be a bad thing. More officers making money, the public is safer, and people get to enjoy a parade. So why would you cancel such an amazing economic benefit that does nothing but pump money into the community? And at the same time, declare the end of the pandemic and that there's no more reason for any sort of benefits to go to individuals. Now, I have said before on this program that the job rate is the same as it was before the pandemic. And this is true. But the same people are not being employed by the same employers. And somebody who has decided to go from, a mid-level marketing position where they're on the phones all day, and instead of doing that, they've decided to go and flip burgers, that's not an equivalent job. At least the CRB benefit, the way it was worded, would make up for that. It would say, okay, you're allowed to earn this, but then we'll give you this on top of it to make up for what you've lost. And so a lot of people have gone out and taken piss-poor jobs with horrible compensation, just so that way they didn't have to be at home with nothing to do. It's a sly way of having their cake and eating it too. And I'm not blaming the Liberals in particular for this. This was negotiated by all three parties. 5 if you want to include the Bloc Québécois and the Greens. And this is seen as an acceptable compromise. Well, to start with, they snuck something else in on the details. Instead of getting $500 per week, the people of the new benefit, the lockdown benefit, will only be receiving $300 per week. So you have to depend on the powers that be declaring there are numbers sick worthy of having a lockdown, and we know they're able to massage the numbers. I've watched them massage the numbers both ways. At the beginning of the crisis, they were pushing them up to get people to panic. And now at the end of the crisis, they're pushing them down so they don't have to go into lockdown again. After all, I think the people would riot if we tried to lock them in their homes at this point. And that's not pro-vaccine, that's not anti-vaccine. That statement is not meant to say anything other than people are frustrated. There's no denying it. And they're going to be even more shocked when they find out, yeah, we're going to lock you down and we're going to pay you less. Now, since last episode, I was so happy at quoting mortgage rates. And if housing is going up 5 and 10%, because after all, the rent restrictions are coming off too. Oh yeah, that's another thing they snuck in there. They're also lifting the cap on rents. So now all those people have been sitting around paying whatever it is. When they go to renew their rents, they're probably in for a pretty nasty shock because it's no longer frozen. Housing prices went up even with a cap in place. How much worse is it going to be now that there's nothing to hold the landlords back? There is, of course, the tribunals and the associations and various things that they go out and appeal to whenever they have to raise their rents, but those generally side with the landlord. And for single apartments, like you can see that house on the corner of your screen, if they had a basement apartment, I wouldn't have any particular problem with them raising their rent, provided it wasn't extreme. But the problem is when you have the multi-unit complexes, like I love to show in the background of these videos, it gets disgusting. And for people to only have, $1,200 in a month to pay for everything, plus there's going to have to be some taken off for tax, plus the cheapest apartments I can find in my area, which is close enough to downtown Toronto, but they're all between $900 and $1,200. And those are for, cheap basement bachelor kind of units. We're not talking a family here. We're talking a bachelor. Somebody can sit there, kick back, play their video games to pass the pandemic, and yeah, that's pretty much all you're doing. Ordering pizza, drinking some beer, smoking some cigarettes, the typical Canadian stuff. But no more help is needed unless an area locks down. This is a phenomenal missed opportunity by the government as a whole. And again, I don't blame the Liberals in particular. I blame all of them. The Conservatives are number two. This requires their consent to go through, and they're the ones beating the narrative that says people are lazy and don't want to work. We have to give them an incentive to work. And we've shown through this program and through a couple studies that people are willing to work. The fact the employment rate is back where it was shows that people are willing to work, even when it's lower quality jobs being offered to them. And the funny part is, they want you to be out there working, but they don't want you to be out there enjoying yourself. No Santa Claus parade for you. Imagine the United States, there'll be Thanksgiving Day parades canceled as well. Outdoor skating, probably not allowed, which is a shame because some of my favorite memories, I can't skate worth a damn. I'm the only Canadian that can't skate. But I still enjoy going and plodding along at my little pace. And I still enjoy, you'd go out there for an hour or two, you'd stop, have a hot chocolate, and that's something pleasurable for somebody of any age or any ethnicity. It's just, go out, get a little bit cold, get a warm drink, and all of your life seems a little bit better. That's not going to be allowed either. So we still have the restrictions on our social life, but there's no restrictions on our working life. And there's no safety net if for any reason you find yourself out of work. Gives an employer a hell of a lot of power, doesn't it? Why would an employer give you a raise? They've got 10 people at the door begging for your job. They can get rid of you in a heartbeat. When I was a manager, spent a lot of time documenting things, making sure everything was in place. I know other managers that do nothing of the sort. It's just, you walk in today, you're fired. At least I would be able to make a case. And I would often find when I documented things, people were better than I thought they were. That was an important thing that I learned through my career. Start really looking at your employees and see who actually does the work. Had one employee, no other manager could stand them. And the difference is, I just took an extra couple minutes and listened. The fact is, they were saying pretty much what I'm doing now. They weren't being treated fairly. And I said, okay, give me the problem employee, and they turned into a super person. They were doing everything better than nobody had any idea what was better. Like, how come you can handle this person? Easy. I listened to them. Another employee, oh, I don't know how they ever wound up working in general. My manager, who was the general manager, came to me and said, how come you never give this guy any complicated instructions? And I said, because they cannot handle it. And they said, you're being mean to this employee. I said, nope. I said, okay, I'm going to talk to them later. And when I do, I'm going to come back and we're going to have a long conversation. So the general manager came back and spoke to me and said, you're right. You can't give him a complicated instruction. See, I know what's happening. And right now, what makes me afraid is that they kept those people that you can't give complicated instructions to precisely because they don't question what's going on. They're never going to fight for a raise. They're going to sit there, do the job, and that's why you wind up waiting on the phone for hours and hours for somebody who's quite frankly overworked and isn't interested in doing the job anyway. This is not a solid term for the long-term health of our economy. Instead of having a somewhat meritocracy, which admittedly has always been tainted by many things, we're basically sitting down and saying, okay, let's work with the cheapest possible solution, spend the least amount on investment, and where you are now is where you are staying. Who does that sound like? The former Soviet Socialist republics, and China, and North Korea. All the dictatorship, none of the socialism. Again, it's hard to blame the government because such pressure has been put on them. And the only good thing is the tax subsidies to the businesses are going away. Mind you, it's December, and they don't declare that until next year anyway. Oh yeah, that whole benefit thing, the employee salary stuff, the stuff for 2020 only applied for 2021. So the stuff that they're getting this year won't go on until their 2022 taxes. So they don't get that money back for another year. If you're in trouble, that is not saving your business. If you survive, it's a nice bit of change in your pocket. But there's going to be a lot of people not surviving simply because the disposable income is not out there. The pandemic's over. Make sure nobody goes anywhere. What a peculiar world we live in at the present time. And the funny part is it's only going to get crazier. We wish to thank you for joining us on the Silverlight Show. If you enjoyed this show, please like, share, and subscribe, and we hope you have a fantastic day.